let's turn our attention to you as a client.
Okay.
You've described the target audiences of your clients and who they are, and so in one particular instance you can reach them. But that's just one component that's just one target audience. You have quite a few target audiences. I suppose if we had a list of target audiences that we could direct a different message to each one of those. So can you tell me, you as Davidson Associates, who do you consider your audiences? I mean, you have lots of different types of clients.
Not as many as you would think, because when I started in this business, understanding that there were probably, I don't know, hundreds of other people doing the same thing.
Right.
I had to find a niche. I'm a great believer in niche marketing. I have a very strong business background, and what I did when I first came here, I mean, it wasn't rocket science. I'm here 20 years, and up until 4 or 5 years ago, and when I came, there was building going on galore here. So my first target audience was builders, contractors, anybody in the building industry. And what I did to promote that is I joined some professional groups. And I was pretty much the only promotional products person who were in these groups. And so I could attend their meetings because I was a member. I probably was considered like an affiliate member, but I was still allowed to be a member. In some cases, every time you go, you get a minute to speak. In some cases, if you bring a gift, you get a minute to speak. In some cases, you don't get a minute at all to speak, but you always get there early, you work the room, you're sitting at a table, you look for people that you don't know. You don't want to sit with your friends or your current clients, because that's not going to work. As well as sitting with total and complete strangers. And, bring business cards, not be obnoxious about them, engage the people in conversation, and if they ask for more information, and only if they ask for more information, do you give it? Try to collect the business cards of all the people at least at your table, so you can send them a note thanking them, telling them how much how nice it was to meet them. I have a card that I had made out that says "It's a pleasure to meet you." It's a handmade paper card that was made for me by something similar to Opportunity Village called Transition Services, and they do make handmade cards, and so I had them do my card for me, and I have always bought it from them. And we send out this "It's a pleasure to meet you" card, which has my logo on the inside. It's sort of in a watermark. And I can write on the inside, and that is a good way to get to meet people. Try my best to remember what they look like, so the next time I go to the meeting, the first people I'm going to look for are the people that I sent cards to, go around and shake their hands, and just keep doing that. And I do make a promise in an industry when I do get to speak, and the promise is I will not give the same item to more than one person. So, except with the exception of 3 things, anything embroidered, screen printed, bags, paper items. I can't say I'm only going to give Post-it notes to one company. But when it comes to an item for the desk, or an item for the home, or an item for their car, I do not give 2 companies who belong to that organization the same thing. So that when their marketing people are calling on their prospective clients, or when they have an event, they're not giving out the same items. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. One of my clients is Visiting Angels. Their logo is blue, or it could be white, but it is basically a one-color logo. And the first item that we did for Visiting Angels, because they had Visiting Angels here is a very successful company. They have the entire Clark County. They have offices in Henderson, and they just, after years, have opened up an office in Summerlin. They probably have about 600 employees. Most of those people are caregivers of some sort. And the first item that we gave them, because the people that they're calling on would be social workers, discharge planners in hospitals, and other social service types of individuals. And they may be calling on some assisted living facilities who don't offer medical treatment that, or the medical care that Visiting Angels does, although it's considered non-medical care. They are allowed to do things like help people take a bath, check to see, they can't administer medication, but check to see if the person has taken their medication, remind them. They can't give the medication to their client, but they can remind them, and the client would then, bring them a glass of water and say, it looks like you didn't take your medication today, you didn't check it off, are you sure? And, then give them their medication. So they're more of an assistance as opposed to a nursing care. And very often there is somebody who is in an assisted living facility who may have had some surgery or something, and they can't go down to dinner. And so the person from Visiting Angels would go to the dining room, get their dinner, make sure that they have it, help them shower, make sure that they're comfortable. If they're supposed to be walking around during the day, they would offer that. They would offer that assistance.
So Visiting Angel is your client.
It's my client.
And you're helping them to promote themselves to the
place
where they're providing their service
actually it's going to the people that are going to recommend them, which would be discharge planners in a hospital, case managers, social workers, anybody in the social service area.
That really is, who's your target audience?
So the target audience is the people that are going to recommend them. They actually have two, because then they want to leave something in the home so that either the patient or the patient's family would then recommend them.
Let me clarify this, because there's a lot of levels of people involved here. The designer is at a level where they're trying to recommend something to your business, and you're recommending to a client who's recommending it to a prospective service agent that's going to hire them, that needs to provide services to a family who makes the decisions for the ultimate person that's receiving the service of the care.
In this case, the design...
Did I describe that right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, who of all those people are you targeting?
It would primarily be the social workers, the discharge planners, and those people. Anybody in the social service in the social service area. But then, of course, we have other people who will recommend the services because they've used them before. So the designers, this is one of the cases where the designer does not get to do anything like the shirts where you have to design something really fabulous, and probably will not even be designing the product. Because there's 650,000 items. So this is where the designer is used, where you say to the designer, this is the item, this is the area that we need to bring the information to, because this is what the company is going to print it, tells us this is the space that we have.
On the product.
On the product. So it is the designer's job is to take the logo and the other information that the company wants, which may be just, depending upon the item, it might just be a web address. It might be a web address, a telephone, and a telephone number. Probably wouldn't have an address on it. Usually on small items there's not enough space, and it's really not important. But just contact information. And so they would take the logo for Visiting Angels, which we will send to you, and it must be in vector format. And that's something else I want to talk about, is how we have to have it and what you need to give your client when you design a logo. It would be in a vector format. That goes to the company that's going to be doing the printing, and they print it. So the first item that we did was a stapler, but we didn't do a standard desk stapler. You can buy staplers that stand up, horizontal staplers. And the way they're made, they're very ergonomically comfortable, and people will give up the stapler that they're currently using to do that.
Because it's in a position where they can grab with their hand and staple, and it sticks up and from the desk clutter.
Yeah, it's very comfortable the way the grip is. I mean, they're really done they're a comfortable thing to hold, and actually...
There's probably more space to print on too, isn't there?
Well, sometimes it's a challenge. The challenge is that some items we can only print vertically, and some items we print horizontally. Now, on something like the stapler, that wouldn't really matter, because either it could be across, and when you're looking at it sort of sideways on it, and people will still be able to read it and see the logo, or it could be stacked. Sometimes we do have to do that if it's horizontal. So those are the challenges that we meet. So this is a challenge to the graphic designer. but it's my job in picking the item to make sure that the area is going to be big enough to represent the client.
Again, you're talking about once you have a client, what's involved in the sales and the production.
Well,
and order taking.
Once they pick the item and the graphic artist comes in.
But see, our students who are playing the graphic designers, the communication consultants in a sense as to what to approach, is what to recommend to you as the product that you're going to give to those that were going to hire you. And you mentioned that some of those that discharge people. How do you describe that target audience?
Okay, generally speaking, the graphic artist would not be part of this decision. Generally speaking.
I'm not talking about your graphic artist preparing the artwork. I'm talking about those on this team that are working.
Oh, team working for me.
That's right, the team working for you. They're designers. I'm sorry.
How do they decide what items they're going to give me, or how they're going to do my logo?
Propose, for you, what promotional pieces they're going to propose for you to reach your market. Because, see, you're not limited to a stapler you're going to give to them. You can have a printed piece, but you're giving them more than a product. You're trying to promote you're promoting the service that you have with what you're showing us, the expertise and the experience you have and how to direct them. And so the information I need to gather from you needs to be directed to my students, the team that's working with you. There's at least a dozen of them, in describing your particular targeted audiences. And one of them is in the medical area you described.
The medical area would
and the other one would be in the municipalities, and they're different kind of personality types.
And we're only allowed to give the municipalities, I can't actually give them an item because that's against the law, but I can give them a written piece about my company. That's fine. I might be able to give them a calendar, but it would have to be a very simple calendar, and that really is about it. I don't even think I can leave a pen.
Nothing construed as a gift.
Nothing construed as a gift. So there is something,
promotional materials for you.
There is something that I want, and I'll explain it to you students. The cutting edge thing right now, which will work a lot better than a brochure, is something called a capability statement. And basically what a capability statement, and the company might have more than one, is a resume for your business. And there is a certain way that it has to be set up on the sheet so that it looks important and people will read it. Generally speaking, if you picked a piece of paper and it was in 4 parts horizontally, on the far right side would be things like the name of the company, contact information, licenses, if applicable, telephone numbers, and who is the go-to person for various things. So it might have telephone numbers and an extension.
Basically, it's a printed
product
what I
want to describe
that represents what you would have on a web page.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but in a different format.
Yes, it's a
and
different
so
format.
Then, on the right-hand side of the left-hand side of the paper will be the meat, what you do, how you do it, why you do it. It's all done on one page, and this page has to look very important. But you don't want it to look boring. So what I would need from a graphic designer is somebody to design an entire page in a color that I can then print on afterwards. So basically would be designing, let's say, a piece of stationery, maybe with a line for the 1/3 part, because I'm going to print it probably on my computer in my office, because remember, I'm going to have more than one, depending upon who I'm going to see. And the background on the paper has to be attractive, but not so attractive that you're not paying attention to what the paper says. So there's one, and I guess that I can send this to you, that was given to me by the person who introduced this to me, this idea to me, and now you're hearing it more and more as a capability statement, what my company is capable of doing.